I was about 7 years of age, and it was a dark, cold winter night. And my father and I had just finished saying goodbye to our family members. It was Christmas Eve, and my aunt and uncle had just went home from visiting. A simple family ritual done every year on Christmas Eve, as usual. Before I knew it, I'd kicked off my winter boots and was in bed. My mom and dad came into the room and spoke with soft words to tell me goodnight. I couldn't wait for Christmas. It was my most favorite holiday of the year. I mean, the presents, the family dinner, everything just seems so perfect when it's the holiday season. Well, at this point, I couldn't go to bed thinking of Christmas and wondering what could possibly be under the tree, but inevitably my eyelids grew heavier, and the light glow from the moon reflecting off of the snow was too soothing. And soon I was fast asleep. All of a sudden I was awake. Thinking it was Christmas, I was overjoyed to go open the presents, but I heard something odd. And my parents were usually up and making breakfast. I mean, I am a pretty heavy sleeper. I heard, though, a mumbling sound. Not a, oh my god, it's a monster, shit your pants sound, but just enough so that I could hear it. Added on to the strange noise, I also heard, well, these were big thumps. I was thinking footsteps. I mean, we have wooden floors, so those of you who also do, you know what I'm talking about. Which was strange, because even my father didn't make thumps that loud when he walked. So the curious and carefree child that I was went to investigate the noises. I checked upstairs, my parents' room, the bathrooms, everything. I found nothing. So the only two places left were the living room and the kitchen. When I stepped into the living room, I had found the source of the mumbling. It was my mother and father, tied up in a rope with cloths around their mouths in front of the Christmas tree and all of the presents. Suddenly, I went to a shock, and my parents weren't ones to play pranks either. Being scared, I rushed to the kitchen to fetch a knife to cut the rope. All of a sudden, I heard a noise coming from the living room. It was the thumping again. I hurried back, and there, next to my parents, was a tall man in a black, sort of robe-like thin cloth hanging around him. It had a hood. He wore heavy, what seemed to be steel-toed boots. The most defining characteristic this mysterious man had was the mask he wore. The mask was black, had huge holes for the eyes, rimmed with metal. There was a long, plastic-looking string that was tied in a tight knot to keep the mask on. But the thing I remembered most was the horrifying black beak on the mask. It curving downward almost like a hellish bird from a nightmare. Only this was real life, and I was frozen, in shock, standing there as the hellbird stared blankly back to me, as though eating the very soul within my body. I did nothing. Seconds felt like total hours until finally the Birdman spoke in a very light, formal, yet wisp-like voice, also revealing that he was a man. Whether it really was a man or not. "I am the bringer of Oblivion," he said. "What do you plan on doing?" I asked. He simply snickered. Behind him I noticed he had a bag. He reached into the bag and pulled out a gasoline tank and started dousing my parents with the gas. I went to attack him, but he punched my stomach and I fell to the ground. It felt like he also broke some of my ribs. Now, let's not be that way, okay? I expected you would sit and behave like a good little boy. He started covering the tree and presents with gas and then threw the tank down. It spilled gasoline everywhere. He grabbed me by the shoulder and threw me by the front door. "Merry Christmas," he said, dropping an enclosed envelope and a mask identical to his. He then took a big Zippo lighter and ignited it, throwing the lighter to my parents, instantly engulfing them and everything in flames. He then jumped out of the window and ran into the dark woods behind our house. I watched as they were screaming in agony under the cloths and their skin started to melt away in char. I went to help them, but the house and everything was just so engulfed in flames. The last words I ever heard of my father was, "Just run, son. Go and run as fast as you can." At least that's what I could make out of him anyway. I went to run out of the house, knowing sadly and contemplating on whether to leave or not. I reached for the door and my foot stumbled upon something. The mask and the letter. And for some reason, I took both. When I finally got a chance to open up the letter, my parents were long gone. All of my happiness crushed. But the letter read as followed. From the bringer of Oblivion. I knew you would keep this. Hello. If you are reading this, then that means you are very lucky. I am the bringer of Oblivion, and this is your letter of Oblivion. With this letter was a mask I left with you as well. But more importantly, I left you with something much more. Anger. Now, don't cry, because it will do no good whatsoever. I have left you with a task and a new life you can choose to lead. Take this mask and keep those words in your head, because I know they will be burned into your memory. When you are older, or maybe even now, depending on when you are reading this, you can take this mask and do the deed I had done to you and your family, to another. You can take the rage out of you. Don't worry, it feels good, I know. Burn the house and leave a letter and a mask identical to these to the youngest of the household, and burn the rest of them all. I know you can do this. I can feel the fucking rage inside of you. I know it's consumed you. So release it. Do this, my child, and spread Oblivion to wherever you may find it suitable. And at the time I had read this, I had stayed at a foster home for God knows how many years. But he was right about the rage. It controlled my body, and sometimes I think to myself, what would happen had whatever had been done that night not have occurred? But there was no fucking way I would become him, I thought to myself. However, I'm now 18 years old. And the rage and the day and the letter, they're all stuck inside of my mind. It is all burned there. Even as I am dropping this mask and this letter to the legs of a very lucky 5-year-old little girl, who just so happens to be the youngest of a family of 4.